Hello and welcome back to the Blizzard Arena here in Burbank, California. We just saw MVP Black take a dominant match over the Deadly Kittens to claim the first matchup in Group A. Second matchup is up next. We have got CE versus Tempo Storm. It should be a fantastic one. You're not going to want to go anywhere. Now, over to the man who puts the H in HGC. That is Kylaris. Sir, over to you.
We're beginning with the teasing already. I can see it's going to be a good tournament. Thank you very much, Cloaken. Indeed, the HGC, the right way to say it, is well underway. And next up, we have China going up against North America. And for North America, Tempo Storm, one of the hopefuls to be able to propel themselves on in this group. A lot of people are looking at this match, Dred, to start things off as the big definer of who's going to take potentially second place in this group.
I think that's a very fair assessment. With these two teams, it's going to be probably, I expect a very competitive performance. I'm hoping to see a lot here from Tempo Storm. I feel like they kind of rode a wave of momentum through the playoffs and kind of felt that, you know, that drive to want to win and be the best into the world. And it feels like that they have been able to translate that all the way through over into Blizzcon. So I think now it's just going to be, you know, showing that it's not just words, that they have the action to back it up.
Joining us down at the end is Jay Howe, who is just bringing us that commentary, loving the Butcher picks. Don't think we're going to be seeing much Butcher in this series unless something has drastically gone weird in the meta whilst we've been gone.
I just am going to point this out, that there were whispers of the Butcher before the days started. I'm not going to say where they came from, but I know that this is not a fluke, Dred, whether you want to believe it or not. I highly doubt we'll see it, but, you know, we heard Rich say it was a Sonya counter, maybe against Deadly Kittens, probably not much more.
All right, we can take a look at the bracket and see what's going on so far in Group A, as we have one match concluded, many more to come. We'll have 5 matches throughout the day. CE is going to be going up against Tempo Storm next, and the winner of that gets the grand old opportunity to play against MVP Black. So it's a bittersweet taste as you go through this bracket to start things off, as I feel like I'm in Orgrimmar right now. I'm loving it. Oh, this music. Unfortunately for Deadly Kittens, they have fallen down to that lower part of the bracket there. But CE going up against Tempo Storm. Let's talk about CE a little bit, because for me, at the start of the year especially, I felt like, aside from your E-Stars, CE were that one team for China that was looking to be, we're going to be number one in China, we're going to be number one in China. Since then, SPT has really stepped things up, and CE has kind of taken a little bit of the back burner, Dred, in this position.
Yeah, I think that's a really great assessment of like kind of what has been happening within the Chinese ecosystem. Ultimately, SPT it feels like they've reached their final form and is really kind of making a staple for themselves after China lost, you know, E-Star and the kind of known #1 team. But CE here at this tournament, they are going to be struggling a little bit in the fact that they do not have all 5 of the original representatives. Not having Shuyu, I do think, might be something that really makes it difficult to gauge what that is going to bring up against a team like Tempo.
I'll check in with you in a moment, Grubby, because we do look at the schedule to make sure that you guys are up to date as to what's going on so far here in the tournament. Our next matchup, CE versus Tempo Storm, and MVP Black and Kittens await their matchups. Again, double elimination format, so you have 2 opportunities to go through if needs be. So, Grubby, looking at CE, how have you been able to kind of feel out CE from HGC China and what they're bringing?
Well, you know, they finished second in their region. They have the one substitute, which it's not nice to talk about, but it should be mentioned.
Of course.
We'd like to have their whole team here, but Loktar is going to be the substitute. So they're a little bit weaker. And in the player interviews, they actually said that because they don't have their full roster, they're going to revert to their most natural style. And for them, full-on aggression. They actually said brawl to the death, in English, by the way,
Yes.
as their method of operating here. So that's going to be very indicative of their mindset into this tournament.
Yeah, we had a great opportunity to talk to them, Jay Howe.
We did, and, you know, to further Dred's point about the Chinese ecosystem, this was one of the teams I studied a lot going into Midseason Brawl. Of course, you know, the substitutes then, but going back to their core, they were statistically one of the most aggressive teams in terms of like that KD that they have as a team. Cumulatively, they would go out, they would dominate their opponents, they would get several kills per game while also not dying a lot. It was just a very aggressive, very, very Chinese approach. But as you said, things have changed. We also have the sub. And if they're going back to that play style, this is the CE that we wanted to see going into Midseason Brawl.
Yeah.
So we might get that here.
But there's one more thing I want to say. We talk about their aggression, but one thing that really stands out to me every time we talk to the Chinese teams and to CE here is that they do their homework. for me, no matter how good you are in the world, there is no excuse for not looking at each and every one of the teams. If you have the time, you're going to look at them. Maybe they're far below your level. For example, MVP Black doesn't look at Deadly Kittens, but as long as you can balance your mindset and you don't say like, oh, we're spending so much time. Are we like worried about this team? Like, are we going to play worse because now we studied them and we're like getting in their head and now they got into our head? No, if you have the balance of mind and the humility, you do study the opponents. CE said that they did this, and I think that's a big power advantage. Plus, Tempo Storm, they played in December. December 2016, they played in a Chinese tournament, GCWC. So they said they have material, they have looked at tempo, and that's going to play into their hands.
Well, let's move on, Dredd, as we have Tempo Storm, and who better to start with than yourself to give us a glimpse into how they're going to be like feeling coming into this series and even this tournament.
Confidence is what seems to be displayed here by multiple members of Tempo Storm. A little bit different than the confidence we normally see here, a bit less than the boastful. It's just that they feel that they have kind of found their identity, they have found themselves in their playstyle, and that they are going to really just hone in on that, perfect it here for the stage of BlizzCon. And when I was talking to Fury behind the scenes yesterday, he was very much like, we're just going to play our playstyle and we feel good about it. We're confident about our meta and our strategy.
It's been particularly interesting. This team has been together since, I think, July of last year, going into the fall regionals. And I've known these players, it seems like, for a while. And I've never seen them in the manner that they're in. They're having fun. They're confident, as you said. It's a very different feel. And at breakfast this morning, I sat down with Kala, their coach. I said, man, I was like, where is this coming from? I don't see this personality-wise from your team. He's like, I don't know, man. He's like, we're just feeling good. We worked a lot on our team morale and things like that, and things seem to have come together at the right time for that team. I remember watching when you guys were casting NA, they qualified, and we had that group shot of Tempo just going bananas that they qualified for BlizzCon. I was like, that's what you want to see, and I think that they're carrying over that momentum.
And even though that momentum does exist, though, for Tempo Storm, I do want to highlight, and that it is slightly different, I do want to highlight that there are some commonalities as well. That Tempo Storm always feels rather confident when going to the international stage, and they have been rather confident within themselves, and with the thought process of we play our play style, and almost to the point where it feels like that they're stubborn and unwilling to adapt. And so, though it does feel different, I'm still, again, kind of waiting for their actions to outweigh their words, because at this point, it's been so consistent that it's almost expected of Tempo Storm.
You saying consistently inconsistent?
Exactly.
That's a thing. Let's find out where we're going to be going for the map for the first match of this. The first battleground will be Battlefield of Eternity, CE's pick to start things. What do we make of that, Grubby? Any thoughts?
It's a real team fight battleground. There's only 2 lanes. There's very few ways to get back into the match if you fall behind early. And a single takedown in the first 2 minutes will make sure that your team is level 4 when the other team is level 3 as you go into the first Immortal phase. So to pick such a heavy team fight map here makes a lot of sense for CE. Tempo definitely love to play the map. They like their Sky Temple games. They like their bigger maps where they can just avoid, rotate, play in a very brainy style. And I do think that style matches up well against an aggressive team, but I don't know that they get that space here on the battleground. But let's see.
Let's light fights against Dark here to start things off in Battlefield of Eternity. CE goes up against Tempo Storm. Let's get this draft going for game number 1.
For me, Tempo Storm, probably the most tight-lipped team that we have here at BlizzCon. They have alluded to the fact that they are bringing out stuff that people haven't seen before. It's a different flavor of what people are doing, and they feel so confident in it that they don't even they respect what the opponent's going to pick. And we said they said we're sticking to our guns. We're sticking to our guns. They believe in what they've been practicing. They talked about their boot camp. I want to see, is that what they come out of the gate showing? Because this is a very tough challenge on day 1.
And it did feel like CE put a lot of emphasis on counteracting and using the depth of their hero pools, being willing to bust out those kind of wild Chinese strategies that we have grown to know and love. And against a team that is flaunting a lack of predictability, that they're willing to bring in their own flavor and their own style here, I do think it's going to be a difficult challenge that CE has no games at this tournament to compare in against Tempo Storm, since that is their #1, strength.
Dredd, when you prepared before, obviously everybody kind of had their strategies and they feel good about it. What is the overall morale of a team generally when you are confident but it doesn't go well? Like, what happens?
It really depends on a lot of variables. It's actually really surprising. I would say it can go about any way, direction, good and or bad, is which you can think of. It is most of the time. I feel like it comes down to just how easy can you scapegoat a excuse like for it, and whether or not how many people on your team agree, and that is really kind of how easy it's going to flaunt over here.
Ooh, that's early.
Yeah, very early. Malthael pickup. He's good on the battleground, but generally gets used against heavy warrior, heavy support comps. He's pretty good at backline diving as well, but you see him rarely in that first pick. That's pretty interesting.
I think overall, though, when you look at Tempo Storm internationally, that's a very bold statement for their first game, considering their usual draft patterns of, we're going to play standard, stable, almost normal.
Tassadar.
Yeah.
Except they banned Tassadar, which was the most interesting part. It shows that they're changing. We see the Tyrael Grey main. We know the effectiveness of that, especially post-10. You get that sanctification, you dive in. It also works really well. If you're not going to go the Lucio route, as we hear the beats in the background, you put down that sanctification to deal with Malthael when he comes in post-10.
But that is so CE, that is so China, opening up with Tyrael Grey main.
Very, very China indeed. Now, of course, Zuyu is not here, the one member for CE that wasn't there, so he would have normally been the Grey main. So we'll see how that fits out for CE down the line.
Even the Tyrael by itself makes a lot of sense here. Malthael, if he goes for Tormented Souls, he's got a 4-second period to do a lot of damage. And this gets counteracted fairly well by Tyrael with the Sanctification. So it will be up to Tempo Storm to try and find a hero that can interrupt Sanct when you feel it coming, by intuition, by timing, knowing that's when Tyrael is going to Sanct. There's half a second to cancel. Good options would involve Muradin, Lucio with the bump. It's going to be Ariel and Valak. Could have some Rain of Vengeance, Detainment Strike. These are good options.
And so, you know, on that kind of, you know, the unique flavor that Tempo Storm has kind of been boasting about here, I already with these first 3 picks, I'm looking at it and I'm just going, so where's the wild card? Because so far, it just feels like meta picks in a unique priority.
We got an Ana hovering for the ban. One of the interesting things about Sanctification, if you use it, you're clumping up under it to make sure you don't feel the effectiveness.
Yes.
Rain of Vengeance is like, okay, that's done. My turn.
Yep.
And it's just like, oh, you got free targets. It's fish in a barrel at that point. But again, the Ana, the new hero that we haven't seen in competitive play. We talked about the Muradin rework. We saw that. But nobody has seen Ana before. And now we see the first hover for the ban. I think there's going to be some potential Ana games throughout our first day here if she makes it.
Yeah, most teams we spoke to felt she is very powerful, but situationally so. She suffers from low wave clear. That means Battlefield is a pretty good map for her, because wave clear isn't that important here. Secondly, her combo with Malthael is truly something else. It's fearsome. Malthael can just keep his finger down on that Q button, keep damaging, keep healing, and with that nano boost, it just goes into overdrive. So very heads up, very smart ban here by CE.
I feel like your analysis is very astute, especially with the picks that are on the other side. If you've got Malthael, who's your solo laner, Oriel and Vala for that wave clear already, it's the perfect ban to say, okay, well, you know, this could potentially fit in, but
100%.
Rhaegar and Lucio, what are we making of it, boys?
Really afraid of Tempo Storm going with the Abathur ban there and not considering the Lucio double support picked up now for CE. It is a very mobile, very deadly, and very aggressive composition here for CE. I would like to say that it has some glaring holes, but currently it very much does not feel like that's the case. And so I want to see, you know, a big power play here with the last 2 picks for Tempo Storm. Going to kick it off with the ETC.
It feels like they've got to go a second support here, right? I mean, you cannot...
I mean, what you need is a reset of the fight, preferably several, because Grey main Tyrael, they're going to be jumping in. You need some reset, you need some pushback. Could be Stukov, it could be, you know, anyone that can push people back. ETC is a great pick, and also Brightwing, there we go. Yeah. Potential Emerald Wind. Now for CE, what would really fit is probably something like Liming, something very aggressive that can come forward with the boys and get some big kills and resets. But a lot of options, actually.
Yeah. Very clear play styles from the compositions that we've been rounding out here. Very kind of clashing play styles that we can see from these 2 comps.
Sanctification counter for the potential mosh pit if it comes to that. You've got the boop from Lucio. Is that enough? As you said, maybe the Liming does kind of fit that. You have a second interrupt in case a safety net. You also have good race towards the Immortal, things like that. I think can play towards that, but...
Let's see what is going to be that final pick for CE. Immortal Race of Greymane is fantastic, so is Rhaegar. Is that their goal, or will it be fully about that team fight as well?
I hope to see a high amount of bursts, whatever the last pick is, just to make sure that it can follow up with the Tyrael and Greymane and secure those kills onto the Vala, onto the Brightwing and Auriel whenever they're forcing that, because both Brightwing and Auriel are pretty situational when they're effective with their actual burst healing to be able to save those dive targets here. Murden will aid with that kind of lockdown to make sure that the Greymane can be a threat along with the Tyrael.
Yes.
Rhaegar with Lightning Bond on top of the Tyrael is really a big threat to be considering here and a large amount of damage. I really do like the draft here that he's been able to compose.
What do we think, Jay?
With that being in that secondary role, that secondary bruiser role with Murden on there, I mean, Tyrael and Murden both play exceptionally well depending on your composition. And I'm starting to wonder, will we get that Korean-style playstyle on your Q? And now you have the stacking Q that you have built in as default, so you can get that piercing in there. It's really effective. Once you stack that early in a map like BOE, where you're going to have standoff periods potentially, it gives you opportunities that you don't necessarily have on other maps. So you could potentially see that effectiveness as the game goes. Post-level 7 with heavy impact, you get that Q stacking up, things like that. Murden can become a serious threat, especially post-10, maybe even a little bit of haymaker action.
Get a little bit wild.
It's going to happen this weekend. It's going to happen.
It is going to happen.
Yeah, that's true. Grubby, your thoughts?
I think it's a good draft by Tempo Storm. The Muradin, he's very strong right now. Surprised me a little bit not having more damage in there. Malthael, I would say he was first pick, but I would still pick him into the entire comp here of CE. Even if he was last pick, I would have believed it. So I like Tempo Storm's draft a little bit more. Tempo Storm.
All right, we'll make sure out there to vote for your favorite team going into this series, of course, with the hashtags. Make sure to hashtag HGC as well as @Heroes Esports to get the HGC universe buzzing over on Twitter. For now, we're almost ready to go into our series. Final thought before we go over to them?
I do want to say that, you know, I haven't touched up on Tempo's draft that much, that they are playing a little bit different than their traditional playstyle, but still sticking to a lot of what we saw through the momentum into the playoffs here with the double support and having the Brightwing. I think it caters to their strengths, and so I think it's a really nice kickoff to the tournament for them. But I do really feel like if the CE has the coordination necessary, that this composition and this high mobility dive to be able to blow up a squishy is really going to be what we see out of a lot of Eastern teams to deal with North America's double support.
Well, thank you very much, gentlemen, as we'll check in after this match has concluded. For now, we're going to head over to our commentary team as Trixler and Gillyweed are ready to take it away.
Thank you, Caleres. Team Trickyweed is here back once again, and I'm so stoked that we get to commentate CE versus Tempo Storm. I think this is going to be one of the closer series of today, definitely.
Yeah, today's very important. This matchup is really kind of a pointer of who will be the #2 seed to come out of this group. A lot of people are already popping for MVP Black to be #1, but the #2 up in the balance right now, and I can't wait to actually see this match unfold. Tempo Storm has been a team that's very methodical, deliberate when it comes to their gameplay, but CE, they love to bring the fight towards you, and they are very effective at it.
And they're going to do it here on Battlefield of Eternity. The game is ready, so let's get into this next best of 3 to determine who has to fight MVP Black in the winners match of this group.
And here we go, Gillyweed. On the left side here in the blue, it will be a CE. Lockdoor will be playing Greymane, Paradise on Muradin, KTY going to be on Lucio, Wind on Tyrael, and Aloof, my favorite support player, playing Rhaegar.
Yeah, Aloof is amazing. I want to see his Karzium, and maybe we'll get it later on. But here in the red, we've got Tempo Storm with June playing Auriel Fury, playing ETC. Kothenluck will be back on the secondary support, playing Brightwing. Som playing Vala. Finally, Caterpillar playing his Malthael. Now, Trixler, they talked about it. Locktar is subbing in along with CE, but Locktar is a great fit to this team. When I talked to Tetcher, he commentates the Chinese region. He said that Locktar is a great fit, and his very best is Greymane. He might even be bringing more aggression to CE, which honestly, I can't even believe would be possible. This is such an aggressive, such a team fight focused team.
Yeah, I'm actually very curious to see how Locktar will perform during this entire tournament. CE themselves said they are actually very comfortable to have him on the team here. He's going to be showing up. Tetcher, shout-outs to him, has been hyping me up on this guy. He says he is a literal god. So now I expect a literal god plays. And already CE coming in, bringing that trademark Chinese aggression, jumping on top of Cattle, getting down to half health. But you can see this will be the theme of the entire series.
Yeah, Tempo Storm may not be ready for how CE and how Chinese teams in general approach Battlefield of Eternity. This early phase is not, let's just sit in our lanes until the Immortal phase spawns.
Nope.
This is, we head to the mid and we brawl. And if you don't brawl us there, we'll head somewhere else and we'll find a place to fight you. KTY is clear over on Tempo's side of the battleground.
He's over there flirting with Auriel on the right side. Let's go ahead, 1v1 duel. And that little maneuver from KTY actually pulled Tempo Storm away from the lanes they wanted to be in. 3 members showed up on that right side, which allows CE to get aggressive on the bottom side. A nice, beautiful play there from Lucio. And as long as there's communication going forward, you can get that value in the push. A little bit of damage here on the turret, and CE already doing great.
Just chipping away at the members of Tempo Storm here and there, either the players themselves or at the towers. And we've talked a lot about CE as we get ready for this first Immortal phase, but I want to highlight that Tempo Storm, this is the exact same roster that represented North America. We're the #1 team from North America at the last Blizzcon under the name of Astral Authority. Yet at that point, they only won a single game versus Soul Torturers before falling out of the tournament. This is their chance to show direct improvement, being able to defeat a team like CE here. And Fury is getting aggressive, going in for the defense.
Love to see the power slide there right on the Immortal as well, which allows Tempo Storm to get the defender's advantage. Nice little trade for them overall, while Malthael continues to poke from the side on the Immortal. Malthael with that Reaper's Mark, always annoying and burning down the Immortals. Gets better too as we move towards that level 4. Throwing Shade is a possibility here for Tempo to pick up.
Yeah, that's a definite possibility. We already see on a Pale Horse, which is fairly common in North America, especially on Battlefield of Eternity, because it allows for making those quick rotations between the lane and the Immortal. But the rest of Tempo Storm just trying to defend and buy some time for that Detamment Strike from June, and that'll be first blood.
And Tempo Storm's confidence is showing right now. 1 pick already, looking for Locktar as well on the backside. Kato applying the Reaper's Mark everywhere he can, while Tempo Storm will take the time to send Bala up to the Immortal. Start working in that Hungering Arrow.
Yeah, Tempo Storm has a couple of different good members. There was the Malthael, and then Psalm, of course, is building into the Hungry Arrow build. Even with Ariel, so important to get that build because of the damage that it can do to a single target. And, of course, with Monster Hunter, that single target also being things like Immortals.
Illy, can I just say how happy I am to see Tempo Storm playing aggressive?
Me too.
They did it in North America, and this season they had a great season, especially towards the end. But coming out to an international tournament and showing confidence, this is what we've needed from Tempo Storm. Maybe a little bit too much there, though, as Psalm gets picked off. Paradise is low, looking to retreat, but Cawthon gets flinged across the room.
Yeah, they're going to lose 2 here, trying to get in and be aggressive, but they were on the side of the battleground, closer to CE, and some were fairly low. And CE took advantage of that, getting a triple kill as they march all the way across. They're going to do what damage they can, but this will most certainly be a CE Immortal now because of that triple play and the damage they had already done.
And I love the greed there from CE. Realizing they got a couple of kills, they immediately split 2 members to the side.
Exactly.
Rhaegar and Lucio. They got experience, they pushed out their lanes, they finished off the Immortal, and now they have a 2-level lead. 1 level here as Tempo Storm gets the experience in, but it helps them push towards that level 7 and continue to move forward.
And I'm really happy to see those kinds of plays from CE because CE's problem has always been that kind of Chinese mentality that we see in Heroes of the Storm. Always about the team fights. Even being baited to team fights when that is not the best for you. Things like being down talent tiers if they feel like they need it. And their team fighting is superb, so fantastic, but it's teams like SPT who have started to teach them how punishing it is to not be able to keep up with the macro game at the same time. SPT's been doing that really well during the secondary part, and CE and BTG have really started to learn from it. There's a Stormbolt, though.
Tempo is playing very scared right now. They know that 7 looms here for CE, and at level 7, heavy impact coming online. Murda at that point doesn't feel like a tank anymore. He feels like an assassin beelining for you, and CE will be intending to do that with that heavy impact being picked up and continuing the aggression on the right side. Now, with all 5 members at Tempo Store coming to the bottom for defense, CE takes the opportunity to rotate towards the top, get a free trade out on that experience, and they're slowing down the rotation here. Look at this Wind, who, by the way, is a Tyrael that you need to keep an eye on.
He is my favorite Tyrael. He is so amazing on his Tyrael. He even is showing his signature build, which includes Angel's Grace. At level 7, having this extra movement speed that he gets, he wants to constantly be throwing out these Eldruins and then being able to move into a better position for things like dropping Sanctification. This is key to CE's type of composition. Having that Sanctification together to enable Greymane to dive in and get a kill on a squishy Vala.
I think that talent is actually really important against Vala players in particular when they're able to start cutting backwards. You want to be able to chase them, cape up and stay in their face. Tyrael's damage is actually very front-loaded when it comes to the smite. So being able to chase down an opponent and continue auto-attacking them will stress them out as much as possible, and it also gives you a really solid escape. So watch out for Wind to show why that talent will be powerful in this matchup.
Yeah, he is such a fun Tyrael to watch. We loved watching his Tyrael at the Eastern Clash. Tempo Storm's trying to fire back at this point. They're doing some structural damage in the top, but a lot of CE's focus was in the bottom lane. That's a mercenary camp that without a fort will be pushing that lane well and set that lane up for the even bigger push with the Shaman from CE that they're starting to get in preparation for this next Immortal phase. Tempo is leagues behind. This is not a place you want to be on Battlefield of Eternity because of the 2 lanes and because of the long objective in the center.
So facial build here for the Brightwing. A bit curious to see how that will pan out, especially with the heavy impact coming online for Muradin. Eventually we'll get to level 10, which is where CE will drop down the Tyrael certification, and Greymane will attempt to take down Malthael as soon as possible. Brightwing having that facial build might be able to help mitigate it, but usually having some kind of damage mitigation or a cleanse could be much more effective in that regard.
Yeah, they're going to be potentially missing out on that cleanse from the Muradin, but Muradin is there to try to help out too with ETC and a Mosh Pit. We do still have a cleanse from CE. Touch of Death is there for Tempo Storm now, so they do have an opportunity to try to stop an Ancestral Healing from being able to keep Greymane alive, but with Sanctification and with Sound Barrier, if CE combos these abilities well, the way that we see so many of these Eastern teams doing with these safe, heroic abilities like Sanctification and Sound Barrier, it does feel like Tempo Storm's going to have a really hard time breaking through.
Tempo needs to fight right now or get out, regardless. Yes. 10 is about to hit for CE, and they're dancing around. They're flirting with the idea of going for an engage, but CE is not giving them an opportunity. That corridor is being held there by Lucio, so the knockback is always available, and Tempo Storm will be forced to pull away and have Brightwing soak towards that 10. But the Immortal, with this 10 hitting, is going to go over to CE, and they're going to be pushing with that heroic advantage.
Yeah, and they absolutely should, because this is a terrifying position for Tempo Storm to be in. This is a terrifying position that many teams have found themselves in on Battlefield of Eternity, and that's defending a super strong Immortal with heroic abilities. Thankfully for Tempo, though, they bought some time. Not for them to get 10, but the shielding is not fully shielding for the Immortal. They have these ranged heroes. Specifically, they have Vala to try to burn that down so that it gets into melee range. Tempo Storm's just going to have to wait to the back, but they've been found.
Here's Wind here trying to go for the Sanctification. He will get it, and Vala gets taken away. We do have the Vala no longer on the field. CE finds a pick, and you were talking about maybe some defense could be available. That Vala falling now significantly reduces that. This fort's dead, and a keep wall easily.
The defense should have just been at the keep anyway. I'm not sure why some people were out at all through the gates, but that is going to be costly for Tempo Storm now. They still have Brightwing in the bottom lane trying, hoping that Tempo Storm can get their heroic abilities, and soon the shielding will be down enough that this Mortal will move forward. At least there's no Sound Barrier and there's no Sanctification, but there's still heroic abilities there for CE.
Paradise just got a 3-man stun there with a heavy impact. Fury doing a great job appealing for his team and keeping him alive. The 10 right around the corner here for Tempo Storm. Can they keep their keep alive as the Immortal continues to fall in hell?
The keep lives, and that is a breath of fresh air to Tempo Storm that they keep that alive, but they have to put on the aggression now. And how? Now that they have heroic abilities. This would even be a great point because so many heroics were used by CE if Tempo can find them out. CE, though, playing pretty safely. Paradise seeing exactly where Tempo Storm are going. CE not really giving them the fight, and that is... It's so hard to convey, but that really is a level up for CE, that they are not giving a fight at this point.
That they are. Paradise on the side, anchoring for his team, keeping tabs on Tempo Storm. For the next 6 levels, Tempo Storm is actually in a decent spot. Their ability to fight in team fights with Tormented Souls, Rain of Vengeance, being able to get that Emerald Wind and Separation, and of course Mosh Pit is wonderful for them if they can find that fight. CE, though, they're looking for 16. They can play safe until then. When Holy Ground comes online, the ability for Muradin to jump in further. Paradise getting caught on the left side, Ancestral coming out, but it is too late, and Tempo Storm fights back.
And Caterpillar making sure that he applied the Touch of Death just in case, too. That will put the Ancestral Healing back on a shortened cooldown. It is there, but at the cost of a Muradin, and this is the moment that Tempo Storm needed to start getting back into this game, trying to bring things down like the well so that there's less of a reinitiation up here in the top lane, trying to bring down structures too so they can tie back up. Tempo Storm no longer has any forts, and one of their keeps is half dead, so they need to try to make that, get caught back up in that regard.
Regardless, when it comes down to it, Tempo Storm has already made me a happy camper. This is what I've needed for them in past international tournaments. Aggression, forcing mistakes. They usually just wait around and wait for you to fall apart, and then they go in for the engage afterwards. But when you're at this high caliber of level of play, you're not going to get those situations to pop out. You have to force it. And Tempo Storm is showing confidence today and also an understanding of where their power spikes are. I am actually very proud of them after this game 1.
Yeah, that's a great point that you were talking about, that the mistakes that you might be waiting for within your own region, you can't depend on. You can't depend on CE, especially the way that CE has been playing. The only thing would maybe be that CE gets just overly aggressive. At this point, they are so far ahead that they kind of are allowed to. So Tempo Storm here, it's a They are down the 13 talent tier, but it's not sort of a situation where they couldn't get into a fight with this, especially with big heroic abilities like Tormented Souls, like Emerald Wind, and especially the Mosh Pit.
Well, CE is attempting to keep Tempo Storm back by their Immortal. Paradise jumps in, gets a stun, there'll be a Stormbolt to follow up. Fury bringing out the Face Melt, helping keep the opponent away. We will have Face Shield come off here for Cathan, but he should be able to get that brought up pretty quickly with that level 1.
Double Mercenary Camp in the bottom lane is starting to be a real threat for Tempo Storm, and because Tempo wanted to defend up at the top, they are a long way away from this, and that's where you're seeing the positioning of CE, waiting to see if anyone rotates down and all the way around, keeping them from that. Either way, they are winning, but at least they force a cleanse on Paradise.
Yeah, CE should stay here in this area, keep Tempo Storm locked down. They win the trade on the fort versus the keep with those objectives and mercenaries picking on the bottom side. Tempo Storm looking like they want to get aggressive, still not 13 here, but they have to do something here with that keep in trouble.
Power Slide hits when Crystal Aegis is forced. Tormented Souls is there too, but a quick sound barrier following up with the Sanctification too. So that is a couple of heroic abilities that were used just to stop the Tormented Souls, but it did stop the Tormented Souls still.
Aegis gets used though. We had Zombie a little bit too low there. Couldn't move forward to apply some damage on his opponent, and therefore CE is going to win out the trade on the heroics. Even though with Syndication and Sound Barrier being down, they still have the engage from Murden, which is a major threat here. With Tormented Souls being down, Tempo Storm loses a major amount of their power.
Yeah, and there was still the Ancestral Healing in case the right moment, the right opportunity for a Greymane to go and go for the throat. And that is enough of a fear for Tempo Storm to retreat and try to clear out those camps. But Trickster, the damage was done. That keep took a ton of damage, less than halfway down now. And if CE gets this Immortal now, they're already at the halfway point, it's feeling like it should be a CE game.
Tempo Storm is getting to a point here where they're going to have to make a play, and they know it. They're getting Brightwing down on the bottom side so she can get 13 for the team. This will allow for them to go in for an engage. If they can buy time, exactly 34 seconds, Tempo Storm will be in a better state. But the problem is, at the same time, CE, they'll have Sanctification.
Right. They ideally fighting before you get those safety heroics. Sound Barrier is a given. It's going to be back in just a few. Cawthon is phase shifting in now, so Tempo Storm are hoping to get the fight. Fury, though, using that phase shift now, it's not a place where they could put Brightwing in a spot to separate out the team, but it seemed like it was just forced in because they felt like Cawthon needed to come in to get the safety of the phase shield.
They got it, but will it be enough? CE working some damage on the left side, Cattle at the same time. Using Malfield to burn down the Immortal while the rest of his team tries to buy time. Paradise jumps in. Aegis will get used instantly. A Sync going to pop out, but the Mosh Pit was utilized.
It was utilized, but it was stunned out too, and that is all. It is down. Tormented Souls is back up. Emerald Wind is there too. So Tempo Storm are still in this even without that. Power Slide hits once again. The damage in. Ancestral Healing this time. It does connect and it does heal up Locktar.
Yes, the Ancestral Healing is going to help out. The Sync got interrupted again, and now we'll have Cattle go for the engage here. A second, one more here. Finally, Sync is available. Tempo Storm unable to secure a kill, but they do buy space, and this allows for them to move over to the Immortal and start working on it. Fury is trying to buy time, trying to dissuade CE from burning down the Immortal.
It's just enough, and Tempo Storm will get their first Immortal of the game, and that was so desperately needed. CE getting any kills at that point, getting the Immortal with keeps that are so low, certainly would have been a 16 against Tempo Storm, and that may have been the end of the game. Tempo Storm has stayed alive, but they have to keep fighting.
And it couldn't have come at a better time here. Tempo Storm, remember that 16 I told you about for CE? About to hit, about a half a level away from getting that holy ground, the ability to jump from across a map, it feels like, with Murden and lock down a target. Tempo Storm wants to be aggressive here. Fury goes in for a power slide, locking down one target at Paradise. Wisely steps to the side and peels out the rest of Tempo Storm, allowing for his team to back up and apply damage.
16 is also huge for Lucio, being able to get Rejuven at 6. Yeah, a ton of healing now for CE with that and the Ancestral Healing. But I want to highlight Caterpillar here. He's been doing an awesome job of trying to wait and see. If they can't kill the target before Ancestral Healing hits, at least he is trying to negate it as best he can.
Brightwing coming in with the phase shift, will have a polymorph, looks to use it, does pop it out. Sanctification will be used. Greymane jump into the fight, looking for Psalm, brings it, go for the throw. Fury's getting low on health, and he will expire. Psalm gets hit with the Aegis, but it's an easy lockdown there from Paradise. There's a Stormbolt, and Tempo Storm loses 2 members.
Tempo Storm out without 16, and the 16 of CE is ripping them apart. Another Holy Ground separates June from his escape path, and that will be his demise. Caterpillar using Tormented Souls and a Raid Strike to teleport away, but there is another Holy Ground win. is relentless.
He's not done. He gets out there. Kotham Bailey giving the face shield. Can they turn around and kill Wind? No. The rest of the team turns around and grabs the shield here, burning it down. Wind flirting with danger here, but does finally get out. Now this keep should be the main target, and Lockdart charges first for his team, and they will be able to take it down.
There's a polymorph there, but it won't be enough at all to save this keep. CE recognizing they can push past the Immortal. Tempo Storm were there without 16. Tempo were desperate to get something done with that, but using that 16, pushing past, knowing that the 4 would be enough to deal with the Immortal, that was what CE were thinking when they went after that engage, and it paid off for them handsomely.
That it did. Now Tempo Storm is in a spot where they are in a dire situation. The next Immortal is coming, and they are still a full level away from hitting 16 themselves, while CE moves towards that level 20. CE here, if they instill a little bit of patience into their gameplay, they should have it in the bag for this Immortal. Their poke is wonderful. They have the engage they want, and Holy Ground literally changes the battleground available for them to pick up the picks that they want.
We have an Executioner pick for Grayman, goes along really well for Burden, as well as having the Earthgrass Totem now for Rhaegar. But what do you think about up the frequency here for Lucio? Instead of going for Rejuvenescencia, even though they have those double warriors there with Muradin and Tyrael, instead just trying to make sure that they have Amp it up more often.
Very interesting pickup there. You can kind of understand the mentality behind it. You're going to have a lot of sustained trades from Tempo Storm, especially because they don't want to fight.
Right.
So not having so much mana burn could be a little bit decent for them. I'm actually very curious about that pickup, because when a Hungering Arrow combo comes in, you want to be able to drop down the major healing that you get from the other 16. So that not being available for CE is a bit odd, but hey, it's China. They love to bring in their talent.
Yeah, they do have some of the most talent diversity of any region, but maybe it is something that you were onto, which is more like he needs to be more of the sustained healer to be there because of the double heals of Tempo Storm between Ariel and Brightwing. But either way, Tempo Storm are still out here being willing to fight. There goes a jump in from Paradise, hits 2 with a heavy impact, but Tempo Storm are still kicking.
And CE is actually fighting on Tempo Storm's Immortal and winning out on the trades. Finally, a Hungering Arrow will connect, and that forces KTY to back up. But at the same time, look at the bottom lane. We have a Mercenary push pushing in, and Brightwing is forced to defend it. In fact, Psalm had to come back. CE should see this on the minimap and instantly move in for more damage on the Immortal.
Get right on in there. They're kind of slow to hit that point, though. Maybe trying to heal back up and make sure they're ready for this potential final push. But 16's now here for Tempo Storm, and that changes some things. Fury has had such a difficult time between the Holy Grounds and the heavy impacts now. Trying to get in and have a place for a mosh pit, he's just... It feels like CE has their number.
Wind is insane on Tyrael. He finds Coffin on the back right corner. He goes in for the engage. The Holy Ground gives him the isolation. Muradin follows up, and they get a kill. And this allows CE to continue moving forward. Cattle drops Tormented Souls and hopes to fight.
Yeah, he is hoping to draw people away. There is a last stand mosh pit that hits 3 members of CE, but the damage just isn't quite there. Finally, Tempo Storm takes down Rhaegar, but they're going to lose a Brightwing. It's a 2 for 1, a 3 for 1, 3 for 2.
Cattle's
it's so back and forth, the action.
Can they get one more kill here? KTY and Win will have to back up. Greymane being down as well as Rhaegar does diminish the actual damage here for CE. And Tempo Storm, with an incredible mosh pit there from ETC, is able to turn around the fight with the aid, of course, of Tormented Souls. And now Cattle, pretty darn good at killing Immortals, moves over and starts progress.
He is good. He's sitting there and he's got his pocket June trying to make sure that he can keep him safe. Cawthon has consistently been back in the base now, dealing with all of the constant pressure from those catapults. And it really does feel like you can go back to the early game aggression that CE had, how fast they were rotating even before that first Immortal, chipping away at some of the structures of Tempo Storm and then being able to aggressively get those couple of Immortals and do a lot with them.
That has been an issue with China in the past. When they get to the late game, can they finish out the game? Can they move forward and actually take the opportunity to take out the core? Tempo Storm right now is in a position where they actually have a possible defense here. They have Tormented Souls up in 20 seconds, Mosh Pit up in another 40. They're sitting in the middle of the map, and by the time 20 hits, they should have all their heroics up and available. But it does feel like it comes down to one more chance. Another thing they have to watch out for, too, are these Holy Grounds. They have been catching supports off left and right. They have to stop that.
Yeah, that is a product of Wind, and it's not like it's just the Chinese teams. All the Korean teams are playing a ton of Tyrael 2. There it is, into the stun, the Holy Ground, and an immediate just has to be used.
Psalm turns it around, drops down the multi-shot, looking to apply some damage on the Immortal. Wind moving forward, Holy Ground is up once again. On the back right corner, he wants to dive forward. Cattle tries to do as much as he can to the Immortal, while the rest of his team here tries to peel away CE.
There is the Holy Ground yet again. Psalm in trouble as Paradise goes in. Kothalik uses Emerald Wind to turn this around, and Tempo Storm are ready to go.
They're looking for the fight, and they may have a chance here to actually win it. Cattle has applied Reaper Mark to 4 members in the fight. Paradise getting lower and lower. Psalm has able to dissuade him from going in for the fight, and now the Immortal is the main target. Tempo Storm, they may have done it when they needed to do it.
The problem with that fight, though, for Tempo Storm is that while Cattle separated everyone else away, the whole team tried to turn on one target, but that target is a Muradin. Muradin is so tanky, he wasn't even forced to use Avatar there. He just has so much health. But hopefully Tempo Storm, if they try this kind of action again, can make something come of it. But now they are starting to lose even out on core health. They're down to 96% because every time they're out here for these long sustained fights, which is what they like to do with their double support, it's costing them in their core health.
I really thought they would be able to burn down the Immortal, but they had to send Brightwing back with 2 catapults on the core, as you mentioned. It's a little bit too difficult. Cattle attempting to get more damage there on the Muradin. Die alone is one of the main things he wants to use here. The main focus is going to be the Immortal, and Tempo Storm does grab it.
A lucky break for Tempo Storm. Where Wynn's Eldrune was when he wanted to teleport to it, that happened to be pretty much where Psalm was bringing Brightwing in with Emerald Wind. And so he was way too far away from the rest of the team. He had to cycle all the way back around. Tempo Storm recognizes this, takes out the Immortal, and again, by the skin of their teeth, gets another Immortal.
Gotta yell out to CE, though, the patience they're showing here. Typically, in the past, they would have tried to fight that no matter what there. Tempo Storm found an advantage, and they pushed it. CE pulls away, and they attempt to go for a push on the top side. The main target, Brightwing, and maybe a keep. He jumps in from across the map. There goes the Stormbow. Aloof jumps on Coffin. Coffin gets low, drops the Emerald Wind, and will be able to escape, but the keep, not so lucky.
The keep is absolutely gone now.
It's 22.
But Brightwing lives. That will be 20. They're going to head on back here. Just leave this to the minions. Yeah, I want to get back and not let Tempo Storm do too much else. But Fury's going to go in with a follow-up Rain of Vengeance to force Sank.
And Wings will save the target from being focused down. That sanctification was enough. And now Locktar can jump in here as Paradise does show up. They'll turn around and put their targeting damage here on top of Coffin here. It's getting lower and lower. And finally, we'll have Vala fall as another engage occurs. And 20-19 CE with the start of a wonderful sanctification will be able to stop Tempo Storm in their tracks.
The target swapping from CE in that fight back and forth just to take out whoever they need to do based on the defensive cooldowns. Tempo Storm may have gotten the Immortal, but CE will walk away with the game.
And you can't blame Tempo Storm on that engage. They were going for the power slide, trying to lock down a target and focus him down. But again, Wings' sanctification just barely saved the target from being focused. And now CE, after a back and forth game, and Tempo Storm coming in and looking much better than I expected here for the tournament, is going to wind up walking away with the victory after a wonderful team fight as CE drops the core down 30, 20, 10%, and they get the first win.
A lot of momentum here for CE, who some are dubbing the best chance for a Chinese team to move on to the round of 8 based on groups. Obviously, SPT is a force in amongst themselves, but CE showing with amazing play that they have shown before, like their Tyrael play with Wind, that they are a force to be reckoned with.
That they are. Let's go back to our analyst desk here and get their thoughts on that matchup.
Thank you very much, guys. Of course, CE with a really strong victory there off the back of that. Tempo Storm had those moments where they could have tried to do something, but what really stood out to us mostly was the engage potential that we saw coming out from CE, Dread.
Yeah, the CE had such an amazing job with the Tyrael constantly taking advantage of any positioning mistake on the side of Tempo Storm. So we're going to take a look at a fight that happened at the bottom lane halfway through it. There is just a really great job. But watch when Tempo Storm decides to make the mistake of splitting a little bit upward here into this fight. Immediately, the members drop and are like, look, go upward. We can get the punishment onto Tempo Storm, dropping a legendary Holy Ground there. And it just really sets them up for success multiple times throughout this game. They just waited for Tempo to just right-click a smidge too far on the other side.
It's been so exciting to see Wynn's Tyrael again, time and time again, with that level 7 Angel's Grace talent, always being so fast, getting those holy grounds and isolating people.
Yeah, and it's another case right there. You see Fury go down to 50% HP because of wind. But then watch this. Right as they find Vala and Brightwing, if one of them makes the mistake, there's the holy ground. Immediately the dwarf toss after, and it's just 100-0. Not even to highlight the fact that that was one of the most legendary sanctifications I've seen in a minute.
That was so good. And it does stand out here that Brightwing has gone for small little advantages with that level 13 talent, a little bit of physical armor, but not having ice block. That was an ice block moment if I've ever seen one.
Yeah, Tempo Storm actually, it traditionally feels like that they have pulled away a little bit from cleanse and the ice block onto the support. That even with the buffs going onto the shielding, they have been very, very consistent of just neglecting the opportunity.
And it makes sense. You get little advantages everywhere in the fight, and it's really difficult to retrace the steps, the red dots that connect the history of a game. So you can't say, well, because there was one moment that needed ice block, therefore they should have had it, because there's many other small little advantages. But that isolation on that Brightwing, that was so sick. It just they see that opportunity and they go for it.
Jayhow?
And we saw a lot of good things. We're all over here watching the games. Dread's getting all excited over here. Like, literally, if you guys could just see him off camera, he's getting crazy. And you got to think Tempo Storm, they're confident. We talked about their confidence. But CE, you can't sleep on this team. Like, you absolutely cannot sleep on this team. If you're thinking, like, oh, Tempo Storm NA, no, this is CE. Like, when a team is able to put that type of dominance on a team in game one and put that type of showing, I think that's more of a testament to the way CE played as opposed to maybe Tempo Storm's shortcoming in that game.
And I also feel like this kind of highlights what I'm expecting to kind of rise through the ranks of strategies from the Eastern versus Western meta and into a double support. Seeing that Tyrael with the Greymane, the dive, I know it's a strategy that used to be legendary, right? Looking back at Summer, that was the core, but it is seems to be brought back to life purely as a response of making it to where those supports can never make one mistake or they will be dead continuously, as you saw there in the last game.
It was great engage, but there was also great disengage from CE. Every time they went into a fight, they'd be like, okay, well, losing this one. Time to disperse and go back. I'm going to hear from you guys in just a few moments' time as we are almost ready for game number 2. But before we get to that, of course, we have a word from our sponsors.
The 2017 Heroes Global Championship Finals are brought to you in part by Republic of Gamers, Intel, T-Mobile, and NVIDIA.
Of course, game number 2 just about to begin here in a few moments' time. We're about to find out our battleground, where we're going. But what I want to ask from you guys is, where does Tempo Storm find strength in that first game to then try and push that onto the next map?
Well, besides just the game itself in this series, you can find strength from the fact that whoever wins this series will lose to MVP Black, probably. And then they'll have to face each other again to determine who goes through if Deadly Kittens is an easy win. Now, the problem is, I don't think that they are. So it does matter to win this one. But Tempo Storm, I think they played pretty fine in the first game. Maybe sometimes a little bit shaky with the pressure. Brightwing can't clear fast enough some of those camps. Maybe it could delay the port in a little bit, because it was a very self-sufficient 4-man from Tempo Storm. And I think a lot of moments they look good, just slightly out-executed. So don't lose hope and just do the same thing.
Well, let's find out where we're going to go here for our next battleground. Game number 2 here between CE and Tempo Storm. Tomb of the Spider Queen by Tempo Storm, brought to the field, Jayhow.
Brought to the field, Tomb of the Spider Queen, obviously a very different battleground. We talked about the lack of wave clear in certain areas, but I think maybe we were just talking about that off camera, but this is one where it heavily favors the wave clear. You have to have some. Going into certain styles won't necessarily obtain that. Yeah, I just want to give you guys a tidbit, because we saw the first pick Malthael last game, and it's not necessarily awkward. It's just Malthael, first pick. All right, it's BOE, makes sense. Had a message from Tetcher, who casted all the Gold Club throughout this year. He said that might even be a denial towards Paradise, who that was one of his main heroes, especially at Battleground. So a little bit of tidbit, maybe some play around with picks if they've done their homework, things like that.
Absolutely. Phase 2 played it 8 times with Paradise on that Malthael, so his most played hero, in fact, when it came to that.
I want to bring to light that Tempo Storm is not a team that traditionally picks Tomb of the Spider Queen. It is a little bit, it's not out of the realm of possibilities, but it is not their go-to main priority. And I'm going to argue it's purely because CE doesn't necessarily have the biggest of track record, is not a high priority map for them. But more importantly than anything here, after that last game and the experience, aggression, team fighting, the very Chinese meta that we've always known and loved, is hindered on a map that is so dependent on wave clear and controlling and manipulating the map. So I really like to see Tempo Storm kind of catering to maybe their strengths and the weaknesses here of CE.
Exactly. You can have one of the most aggressive team fighting compositions on in the game, but as soon as you're on Tomb of the Spider Queen, you can literally get out janitored, out cleaned up, just clearing those waves, picking up the gems, and just not being where the aggressive team is going to have to be to clear the wave. That's a very effective way of winning this map. Good picks here include Chromie, that can interrupt the pay station from very far away, but also anything with really good wave clear, and being able to pick up gems safely.
You talk about wave clear. We saw Johanna in our first series. Obviously, this was probably one of her better battlegrounds before the rework.
Yeah.
She has a little bit more aggression, in my opinion, with the talent rework. Is this something we've seen her on, but also something that could be up for contention is the Garrosh. We don't see that early game. You can get a lot of value on Garrosh because of the close distance. You have more opportunities to get those throws.
Yeah, Garrosh punishes gem pickup in particular. His wave clear is terrible, but he can, anyone that wants to, and the cool thing is, you know where those gems are. The opponent that's going to pick them up is going to make it so easy to land that pull-in combo.
Oh, you want these? Come and get them, please. Please come get these.
Just go ahead, stop on by. One thing that I did want to highlight is that Tempo Storm, when they did end up playing on Tomb during the playoffs, again, riding that kind of momentum, Fury on Garrosh was a big reason, as they were so dominant within the North American scene. So, obviously Garrosh is a very power pick within the meta itself, but I do think taking that away from Fury is going to really set them ahead into the draft. Tempo still sticking with that Malthael and the ETC here. ETC a smidge higher than before, but the Malthael, I still, I'm a bit surprised to see it in game 2.
Well, I think Malthael was one of the things that worked the best in the last game. Despite picking it early, he wasn't really countered, he stayed alive long, and he usually wasn't the one that got taken out early. Plus, Malthael also bypasses Garrosh's armor component. Garrosh gets more and more armor the lower his health bar drops. And because Malthael does true damage, percentage damage, he completely bypasses that. So he's an excellent choice against Garrosh himself.
I want to talk a little bit about Fury's ETC. I spent a lot of time watching individual perspectives of individual heroes and players. Fury is probably, and I watched from Europe, North America, over 20, 30 plus games individually. Fury has probably the most aggressive power slides. And we saw sometimes, even that one at the bottom, it's like he wants to make that big play oftentimes instead of a team-oriented where we kind of see this bump and slide approach from the Europeans, things like that. There are some counterplays towards that. But if you watch the positioning of that, he really likes to go all in. So I'd like to see if they're going to commit to that. We saw the Vala last game. I'd like to see some type of heavy burst style to complement that play style that Fury likes to have on that ETC.
This is where pattern recognition becomes a thing. Rhaegar, Lucio, twice in a row. We're starting to see trends here. We're only just getting started in the HGC finals. But we see that double support combo once again. A very nice double support there with that movement speed of Lucio.
I just want to say that I really do appreciate the double audible woof that you've kind of given throughout this draft at specific moments. Just, woof, man. Yeah, that is a very, to see Anna banned out here, it makes me very optimistic, especially towards the meta. And it's with the Malthael picked up, I'm not surprised to be able to see that taken away. But I do want to highlight that the Rhaegar-Lucio duo together are some of the most offensive, but also they kind of like light synergize because they can dive so effectively. I'm very surprised to be able to see CE get that for themselves here in this game. And again, when you're running double support, Rhaegar sits above all else because if you can get wave clear within your support role, you suddenly feel like you aren't hindered on every other class.
Yeah, I mean, you wouldn't do something like Ana, Tyrande, not that they particularly work well together, just because they have too little wave clear.
Speaking of wave clear, the one thing that I've seen Greymane in particular, yes, you get that percentage-based damage. Malthael can survive in that, but Greymane, when it comes to defending the web weavers, isn't necessarily the best. Most of his damage is done when he's in Worgen form. And speaking of wave clear, we got ourselves a Ragnaros sighting all of a sudden, guys.
Cassia to counter Greymane and Ragnaros to control the map.
He does that pretty well.
It's again essentially kind of a pause button for the lack of wave clear on their side, sacrificing a majority of the gems. So if Tempo Storm commits too many gems too early, it's very easy for CE to kind of go wipe the slate clean, reset the map, and then rely on their offensive team fighting post 10.
I mean, you mentioned wave clear, and let's hope for the sake of one of our commentators, that's the only wave we see during this.
Yeah, no joke.
Look, I'm just going to throw this out there. There will potentially be a team that will make Trixler's day
we know.
this weekend. If everybody's wondering, it's that old lava wave. And
Now, Tempo has two options. Second support or maybe Tyrael would work pretty well as well. You want to have people that can save Garrosh victims or that can save themselves. Tyrael does this fine. You would have a very aggressive comp with movement speed and sanctification.
Ooh.
And that's a good save as well.
Yeah.
One force of will, protected, and a portal, by the way, to save whoever gets thrown in.
Yeah.
At midseason brawl, I sat down with Koth and Luck, and I'm just asking him, I said, what do you think your best hero is? Just throw it out there. Give it to me. He's like, I'd say my Greymane. And he came out, his games were limited, but when he is on that hero, he is very effective. Generally, that might be the Psalm-style hero, but Medivh is the Psalm hero in this instance, which will give Cawthon potentially his best hero in his mind. So the confidence is going to be there in a hero like that. So I'm really curious, can Cawthon make the plays on that big carry-style hero on that backside with Greymane?
As Grubby is alluding to, is Medivh the best answer in the meta right now to a Garrosh? Is that the best way to potentially deal with it?
If you don't have mobility on most of your heroes, yeah.
He's definitely the safest, right? Because he's like a direct counter to all the things Garrosh does, and his cooldowns nearly match that of Garrosh. But I don't know if I would say the best, because that comes with massive trade-offs within your composition, right? So ultimately, yes for the save, but does that mean it's worth the pick? Maybe not.
I would take Medivh every time against Garrosh. They both have low wave clear, so it's not like you're falling behind where you say, okay, I'm countering this burst, but they're also going to control the map. So in that part, it's tolerable and okay.
Yeah.
And then you've got that save. And if everything goes wrong, Leyline Seal to reset. There is no question in my mind that whoever has the better end of the draft, skill and execution will win out, because the tools are there on either side. Mobility on the side of CE, and then we've got these protection buttons on the side of Tempo Storm.
Though, for me, these drafts don't feel necessarily stacked in one way or the other. I feel like if Tempo Storm does struggle heavily in this game or even loses it, it's a bit more telling maybe towards the mentality and success into the tournament, just because they do have a lot of the tools to be able to deal with it. And Tempo Storm, in my opinion, has the better composition, but ultimately I do feel like the synergy and teamwork that CE displayed in the last game, and specifically the Ragnaros adjustment that North America has literally not seen a fraction of, is going to kind of catch them off guard. And I'm just, if they are not aware of that before the game opens, I feel like it kind of shows the mentality and adjustments that they're going to need to make if they're successful.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. Make sure out there not only to hashtag which team you think is going to be winning, but also get those cheers going as well. I saw in the previous game we had that CE banner, all important. Get those in-game items as well. Always fun to represent some of your favorite teams along the way. For now, we're heading over to our commentary team in Gillyweed, and Trixler, take it away.
Tempo Storm has the opportunity to show their improvement over the last year from last Blizzcon to this one, but they have to get over such a towering mental hurdle now, knowing that they lost the last game to CE.
Yes,
Can they do it?
I believe so, actually. The composition that they have is actually really great there with the Medivh rounding out the draft. It helps them with Garrosh picking off targets and bringing them back. You know, of course, protection, by the way, is always wonderful, and I'm going to get that word out of my mouth because I'm not going to say, by the way, ever again in this cast.
We have cut it from our vocabulary.
It's done. And then secondly, Medivh gives the ability for a team to dive on a Ragnaros. Ragnaros is a very vulnerable body, and if you can dive on top of him and take him out, he falls very quickly. So I would love to see if Tempo Storm can pull that off.
Let's see if they can do it. Let's get into game 2 on Tomb of the Spider Queen between Tempo Storm and CE. CE leading this best of 3, 1-0.
And here we go. The second game in this best-of-3 series here. If CE can earn the victory, they will move forward up to the upper bracket here. And then, of course, if they lose against Tempo Storm and tie up the series, we get one more game, which is always great. Here on the left side, in the blue, it will be CE. Aloof playing Rhaegar, KTY playing Lucio, Paradise playing the Ragnaros. I'll keep an eye on him. And Lochtar playing Cassio. Wind finishing it up with Garrosh.
And in the red, we've got Tempo Storm with ETC played by Fury, Koth and Luck playing Greymane, Caterpillar back on Malthael, Sukov played by June, and Psalm will be helping him out on his Medivh.
Gotta be watching that Medivh. I think Psalm will definitely be one of the players that we have to keep an eye on during this entire game there. The Medivh is going to be instrumental for Tempo Storm to both survive and be effective for dives. Later on, with ETC and Medivh being paired up, they are very solid at finding isolation and getting a kill with Greymane following up. So Tempo Storm will need to have coordination to pull that off.
Now, Trixler, they're also going to need coordination, making sure they can stay away from Wind's Garrosh, or at least make sure that they're saving those targets. Wind and CE are the only Chinese teams playing Garrosh, at least they were during their regional, and he was making a short work of a lot of members of SPT, even with this hero. So we'll be looking for those kinds of picks. But Templestorm now has had a taste of what it's like to play versus CE. They haven't played each other since, I believe, CE mentioned at GCWC last year. So it's been a long time since they've felt that kind of aggression out. Now they should understand and know how CE is going to be playing.
A lot of it will rest on top of Fury and the ETC play there. He'll have to be in the face of Garrosh as much as possible. And whenever he thinks an engage is coming, and if we do have Wind decide that he wants to throw the ETC, you drop down the heal instantly. So you get that resistance and then power slide out, just like that. And if Psalm is nearby at any point to drop in the Force of Will, Templestorm should be able to handle that pressure coming their way. The one thing that they should not do, no matter what here, as we head towards the mid stages of the game, is not get close to turrets. That's where it becomes a bit of a difficulty to actually pull that off, as CE will be able to boost forward with Lucio and even go past portals to get kills.
Oh, but that power slide was used. Thankfully, the portal was there to get Fury out of danger, but it's a slippery slope that Templestorm are at. That wasn't even near towers. That was just middle of the lane, and that shows the amount of damage that CE can do, especially once Templestorm starts to group up even at all because of charge strikes and Cassia. We're seeing Paradise as the Ragnaros leveling or laning in the bottom versus Caterpillar, also trying to build up his stacks for level 1. That is not how their cohorts from China, BTG, play with Ragnaros. They traditionally will keep Ragnaros in the 4 and then rotate so that he can try to build those stacks a little bit easier. So we'll keep track and see how Paradise is doing. Right now he's sitting at 10 stacks. 14 stacks of the necessary 30.
So almost about halfway
Yeah.
there. That's going to be a bit of a difficult matchup, and luckily he's had Rhaegar come down to provide a heal, also to grab the Giants to kind of push the Malthael. Generally, in most 1v1 situations, Malthael will out-sustain you and be quite annoying, so a gank could always be good there to help take him down, but CE shouldn't expect too much to happen in that bottom lane. Most of the aggression will be around Wind here on that Garrosh. And there we saw them from Templestorm, Wind easily walking away there while KTY will drop off the heal. Now, the aggression coming from CE has allowed for them to drop off more gems, and as we start to break down turrets, we should have CE drop more and more off. That's what's so great about having a Garrosh on this battleground in the early game. You literally scare your opponents to the point where they're sitting back by the turrets, which allows for you to go turn-ins.
Right, you win either way. Either you're able to get some picks, and not finding that, you have these control over both of the turn-in points, or at least one of them most often enough that you can get turned in. There's only 10 at this point, and there's only a little bit of an experience advantage for CE, but Templestorm at least are not losing out on any early picks with Garrosh, which is very nice for them.
And I do want to ask you actually here, in EU, one of the stronger strategies is to try to get 2 turn-ins right away. One before level 10, one right when you're hitting 10 or right afterwards, and you try to just put so much pressure on your opponent that you break down forts and you just pen them on their side of the battleground. Is that similar in North America?
In North America, we have had a lot of teams trying to do that, but it's still sort of experimental phase of figuring out when the right time for the first turn-in is and trying to make sure that they can get enough structural damage done to make sure that they get 10s close enough that you get the secondary one too. So it is obviously the goal, but it's not there.
Gotcha.
Executed by every single team just yet.
I was a bit curious, because Templestorm isn't peeling members off to try and watch those turn-ins as often as you normally see. CE, though, they don't seem to be doing as much as they want to actually go in for the turn-ins. They're intending to actually break down turrets more here to try and get an experience lead, and they've gotten a smidgen of experience lead. They get to level 7 right now, but yet not going for the full drop-in, which allows Templestorm, after fighting in the middle, to actually move forward and try to get their own.
Yeah, the thing I'm worried about for Tempo is how much structural damage has been done, though, by C at this point. Getting a tower in the bottom, and I think getting one in the mid, too. This is going to be an opportunity for snowballing, even a tower in the top. There are a lot of different places for them to be able to push along with Web Weavers and then try to pull some of the resources of Tempo Storm somewhere. And let's not forget, CE has a Ragnaros. So opening up a battleground, opening up the map, especially Tomb, allows you to have forward outposts later on where you take over that structure, and then if your team is, or your opponents are too far out, you can catch them trying to retreat through that point, and you might just wipe the team.
The strength of being a Ragnaros. You have a bit of a weaker body when you're not in Molten Core form, but when you go into Molten Core, you are all powerful, and those outposts are, of course, very important for going for those fights later on in the stages, so we'll keep an eye out for that. One of the things that I am a bit worried about, though, for CE is their seed potential is actually kind of lackluster. Their kill potential is great, so their turn-ins, I feel like they kind of have to group up and all in on an idea, so they can go for the top side or the bottom side, depending on how they feel like they have the map pushed out, but spreading out will not be advantageous for them.
Great silence there from Stukov. June playing that hero, but it's not enough to amount to a Garrosh kill. And Tempo Storm keeps their composure and are able to get the first web weaver phase. So here's a chance for them to push back these lanes that have taken a lot of damage from CE. We're going to start with clearing out this top lane, keeping a member in at least the bottom lane. They have Malthael there, and then Tempo Storm can rotate back and forth between mid and top wherever they find an opportunity. But they need to move fast because CE are a level ahead of them.
And this is where I love Ragnaros. If you do find a spot that you think your opponent might actually break down a fort, you can use that Molten Core and completely stop them from pushing. The best place to do this is in the middle, and here we are, Paradise, showing up, dropping down the damage here from the middle side. This will allow for him to also poke top or bottom, depending on where Tempo Storm goes. Tempo Storm, anticipating this, actually spreads out and allows for them to decide, okay, where is CE not defending? There we'll try and get some experience to catch up.
Yeah, that was great. The setup for the members of Tempo Storm, where they were at, they could quickly move to the top and the bottom to push those. They get one tower in the top lane. This has got them caught up in experience, but there's now only one web weaver left down in the bottom lane. And with so many defending that, it should fall pretty quickly. Still a couple of members here. There's a portal to get people out, especially against Wynn's Garrosh. But the problem for Tempo Storm is that they used 50 gems, and they're still just tied with CE in experience. And that is all back to the solid, strong early game of CE.
Tempo Storm does catch up, so they are now officially a condiment here, as they're able to get the 10 side CE, and Lava Wave has been chosen. First off, picking this is the best pick you could ever do. 100% win rate in the HGC. Thank you, Dark-Sided. Cassia, though, gets picked off in the middle lane, and Tempo Storm will have to deal with the might of lava burning down lanes.
Lava and web weavers. That is a spidery, scary combination if I've ever heard of it. But getting a pick on Cassia is a nice start to that defense. So they did it. I thought it was going to be something like Valkyrie Sulfuris Smash, like some sort of wombo with that. But we've got a Lava Wave.
Personally, I enjoy it with this competition because we go back to the point we brought up earlier. They don't have much siege potential.
Yeah.
So if they actually want to put down a Lava Wave, say, in the top lane, and then put all 5 members in the bottom side, they get lanes pushing. The trade-off, though, with using Lava Wave is, 1, you don't have the combo you just mentioned, and 2, that if you do it a little bit too early, you actually miss out on 6 to 9 gems. As it burns down the lane and you can't go towards it.
Yeah. You know, I was also thinking, oh, maybe we'll see something like a Warlord's Challenge if Tempo Storm groups up too much, and then Lava Wave after that. But you could also just do that with a Sulfuris Smash, too. So we'll just have to see how this Lava Wave thing is going to work out for CE. But the good thing is they're pushing in with their Web Weavers. They're starting to put in support damage. They're trying to reap the rewards of having that strong early game.
CE taking some damage here as Leyline Seal pops out. The silence coming in from June. They will try to lock down Lucio, but KTY does get out. Drops the sound barrier. Medivh gets focused down, and here is the lava as it burns down the middle lane, pushing everyone from Tempo Storm back.
Oh, I love you. Got so into that Lava Wave. It's like your first time getting to commentate Lava Wave, and you made it epic. You got to pull immediately out of that box, though. Caterpillar's going to go there. Paradise goes down. He can't do it now. Tempo Storm firing back, takes down 2.
That they do, and June coming in there with the flailing arm helping out. Tempo Storm is able to trade out the 1 for 2. Medivh falling victim there. Did he finish Master's Touch? No, he did not. So there's an update on it. Tempo Storm defends, but they do overall lose out on a fort. They lose Medivh's Master Touch. So CE definitely taking that trade.
That was what Tempo Storm needed to do, though, before things got out of control the way they were in the last game, too. Making the best of a bad situation, making the best of losing Psalm there. Tempo Storm still being able to get 2, rotating out quickly to try to get this turn in. Wynn's gonna stop Fury from doing that, but Psalm's here too now. Cursed Bullet comes out, they're trying to get this kill.
Wind has done goofed, it looks like. Drops down the taunt, can he survive? He actually baits everyone from Tempo Storm into a fight. Eventually will fall, but Malthael's already dead. CE giving chase here as Locktar is looking to apply a little bit of damage there from the Cassia. Goes in for the Fury. Can he get more?
Gets the Fend, Force of Will, keeping Psalm alive. Leyline burned just to make sure they can live, and now they're trying to turn this back around. Fury gets into a good position for a power slide to hold KTY on top of that silence. But no kills from that fight. It's just Tempo Storm getting back to safety.
And looking at that can't stop, one stop, going to be helping out there with Lucio. So Lucio is actually immune to all enemy slow and root effects when he's in wall ride. Very, very helpful there as he continues to have the focus coming from him. ETC and such trying to lock him down, trying to gate out. Usually you see that resistance picked up at level 13, so a bit of a change up. But CE, man, they love to play with their different talents, and I can see why they pick it here.
Yeah. Not a whole lot of slows and roots there, but we'll see what he could do with that Lucio pick there. We've also got Inevitable End for Malthael. hoping that he could try to live through some of this Garrosh aggression. Sadly, though, Wind getting the if I'm going down, I'm taking you with me kill. It's pretty good for CE.
That's pretty much the motto of all Garrosh players.
Yeah.
I'm going down, but you're coming with me. As another pick comes in, 14-13, much closer match for our teams as we head to the mid game. Fury is the target, but there is a portal for him to escape to. Taunt gets popped off, Fury gets focused, and he gets deleted. And Malfield trying to get out of the fight here, but we have Lochter thrown over the wall by Garrosh, going straight for Cattle. He'll beeline for him and take him out.
These portals will save what's left of Tempo Storm's forces, especially now that Quickening is here. But Tempo Storm are in dire straits. They lose two, they lose their front line. A lot of that was because of the setup too. Fury being separated from the team took damage. The top pulling him away from getting to the team two, getting back to safety with the rest of the members. That was a great Warlords challenge to pull him back so that they could get that kill. 44 out of the 55 gems necessary for CE to get their second turn-in of the game, and there they will get it.
And CE with the second turn-in are looking for level 16 forts to be destroyed. They've already dealt with the fort in the middle and the bottom side, so they're in a great spot in terms of opening up the battleground. Can they get more? A keep wall would be instrumental and helpful for them to move forward.
Tempo Storm are setting up a defense in the top lane. They do have Medivh down in the bottom, but it's going to be the inevitable end usage for Caterpillar. Had to use it early on in the last one too, and that's just Wind forcing him to use it.
The pressure of a Garrosh player, man, is always tilt-inducing. That is for sure when you have to burn down, cool down. CE continues to move forward here. They have a healthy Web Weaver, and if they really decide to, they could drop down Molten Core here on the backside, siege from afar, and allow for the Cassie in particular to step up and continue to attempt to harass their opponents.
Love that they're pushing this middle lane though, because they have those bruisers, they have the Web Weavers, and when I've seen MVP Black a few times play Ragnaros onto the Spider Queen in this part, they like to try to bring down that middle keep first, because you can siege both the other keeps with it once you use Molten Core there. So it's a good forward outpost for a team when they have Ragnaros, but because the Web Weaver was taken down so much, looks like maybe no keep yet. Wind throws back, forces Whale, Sound Barrier.
There it is. Paradise turns around, drops on the smash. Malthus being focused down. Paradise moves forward. They're going to have the Force of Will coming out to keep Cattle alive, but he wastes out on the Tormented Souls. Here comes the Lava Wave. Not going to do too much, but CE use that Lava Wave, so if they started to lose a team fight, they could escape backwards and at least be able to get in a spot where they defend against Tempo.
I thought maybe that was going to be a place for Tempo to catch the members of CE because Sound Barrier was used so early on in that fight. Tormented Souls hadn't, but because Flailing Swipe was being used, other members were running just down to defend. Caterpillar didn't have the backup with him to go back in.
Wow, looking at this, CE is actually playing very well. They are showing 3 in the middle, showing that they're willing to fight against Simple Storm, but not actually wanting to. They can poop away from KTY and go for a disengage, and CE mask a boss engage on top of the boss. They use Rhaegar and Cassie, and they're able to grab it for free because Tempo Storm thought they were going for a turn-in.
That was so well done. CE is playing impressively at this event, their first match of opening week for the HGC finals. They're moving on forward. Fury not hitting Wind with the power side. Instead, will get tossed back into the fray. Goes through the portal, but there is the siege, the damage from Molten Core as Stukov falls.
And Lockdar will delete that Stukov. Cattle trying to body block for his teammate. The Molten Core being used on the back fort side to be able to siege from afar. A little bit too out of range here for CE to continue chasing forward. But look at that boss. It's actually very healthy. Without a Stukov being around, it becomes much more difficult for Tempo Storm to defend.
Yeah, this may just simply be it for Tempo Storm. They still have Mosh Pit as a defense line. They still have Leyline Seal too. They're just doing what they can to bring down the boss and not get overly scared, overly cautious against them. There's a Leyline Seal. Do we see the Mosh follow-up? Power side hits. They've got the 3-man.
Blue comes out here on the side. Still has Ancestor healing. Sound Barrier will be used. CE hoping to defend. They turn around for the fight. Cattle trying to escape. Portal has also been dropped. We're going to need another one up in a second. There it is. Fury going in for the engage, but the immediate boot there from KTY knocks him away from the fight. 18-16, CE is able to escape, but Tempo Storm defends their core.
And because Rhaegar was out of that mosh, he had the cleanse to get Garrosh out, which is what stopped the mosh pit from getting anything more. Tempo Storm had their wombo set up, but CE completely dismantled it. Tempo Storm will have to find a different opportunity.
And that's why I love Aloof, man. Underrated as a support player. I hope to see more of his Karazim in this tournament, but not too bad on the Rhaegar so far.
Yeah, I keep saying that too. Hasn't played Karazim for, I think, all of phase 2.
Rip.
But I still think we could maybe convince him to
We
play.
can convince him.
I think so, yeah.
We'll give him a little love note under his pillow. Like, hey, Karazim is your
Just
friend.
Karazim, just a heart.
Oh, the Ancestral comes out. Win trying to stay alive. Gets
Great.
a throw. Being knocked around here. Still alive. And Supple pops out. But the ball from Cassia actually lands there on Malthio, getting the kill. And CE is looking like they might want to chase. Decides against it as they now want to defend against the Web Weavers coming their way.
Man, June was getting aggressive in there in his positioning. He was like, I'm sick of defensive flailing swipes. You are not getting back to your base this time. Tempo Storm have some Web Weavers. They're still wanting to go for the kills. This is the time. They're down 2 levels. They need to make something happen here with the Leyline Seal.
Leyline Seal stops 2 targets. Aloof is low. Going in for the bite is going to go ahead and disengage here. The Web Weaver in the middle has been dealt with. The other is in the top side, but with CE pushing in so heavily, it's not even in a threatening position for that fort, which allows CE to easily run to the bottom. And this is where it becomes a major issue. Level 20 is about to hit here for CE.
Yeah, it's not a great feeling at this point for Tempo Storm. They are on a Web Weaver phase. They're 2 levels behind, and they haven't taken out a single fort from CE at this point. They have lost their top keep. They've had 2 turn-in phases, and Paradise keeps it alive, but I hear a sound barrier.
They're trying to go in. Always nerve-wracking when you're trying to observe CE because they always want to go in for fights that you typically do not want to see. About to hit level 20 here. Usually would wait for a few more seconds, but they thought they saw an opportunity to go in. Didn't quite pan out for them, but still 20 right around the 20 here as they grab the Giants. They can now go in for a turn-in. They have 2 levels to play around and do whatever they would like for the time being, just because they're so far ahead of their opponent. The next target keeps in 4.
Tough times for Tempo Storm.
That's a good way to put it.
Yeah, and CE playing incredibly well at this event, this series, looking like they want to try their hand at a series versus MVP Black, a completely different competitor type. 20 here, heroic difficulty available for Ragnaros. There is the keep down in the top lane. That might be a possible point to use that. But they look like they want to push in the bottom lane instead.
Heroic difficulty, great for defense, but also offense. Again, getting that extra health and, of course, damage. And the cooldown being reduced means that you can use it willy-nilly. You can literally drop it, be around your team, be able to go for the disengagements, especially when you're near a Lucio. CE is getting ready for what they would consider a game-ending push. Engage here, the ball throwing multiple members.
They had the 2 members, there's taunt, follow-up 2, but a great silence, such a good silence. Tempo Storm ready to go, jumping on top of Win. Sound barrier stops, though, the Maltheo yet again. They'll use Inevitable End and the Flailing Swipe. Tempo Storm retreat, but they're retreating back after what maybe the best chance for them to try to get some kills, still weren't able to get it.
The Lava Wave coming in and connecting with multiple members. Saw him using the Force of Will to live himself. CE brings in the Ragnaros as well, done using the Molten Core. Keep in the middle has fallen. There are catapults and Web Weavers on the core. CE charging forward. Cattle hoping to defend, to keep his team here in this matchup. Gonna have Fury going for a power slide into a mosh pit, but we have the knockback from Lucio.
Knockback takes him out. Fury not getting the mosh pit. Now he will fall. There's a double kill for CE as they march confidently in to get more. Pulling back Caterpillar. A taunt is his demise. And CE will take out Tempo Storm 2-0. Moving on to MVP Black.
Lava Wave continues to be undefeated in the HGC as CE and Darksided have both won in the world with the best heroic in the game.
Yes, I attribute that entire game simply to Lava Wave, Trixler.
As you should.
You're a prophet.
Thank you, thank you. Well, CE comes out and they look dominant. Even with a sub coming in, Locktar holding his own here against Tempo Storm. But I gotta say, Tempo Storm looking great there. You know, in the past we would look at them and say, hey, why aren't they pushing in? Why aren't they pushing for advantages? Why aren't they trying to force mistakes? They did that in this series, and that gives me hope for them as a team.
Well, you've heard our thoughts on this match. Let's check in with the analyst desk and get their thoughts.
That's right. We managed to get a few words from CE before the tournament began, and they said going into this series, 50-50 chance they'd be able to take the victory. That looked more to me than just a 50-50 chance.
Well, they also said that if they win the first match, which they now have, they have an 80% chance of making it out of the group. They were very respectful and cautious of Tempo Storm. They saw them play in China in December 2016, but they don't know enough about them. Now they have crossed swords. CE has come out victorious, and they should feel pretty confident to advance out of the group.
I agree. I mean, that was an amazing performance from CE. Like, I want to reiterate that. I feel like such an amazing play from them. They were a pleasant surprise at the Eastern Clash, and I did feel like maybe it wouldn't continue all the way over through BlizzCon, but it very much seems to be the case here. Wynn's just making plays left and right. Like I feel like calling him out is maybe not even true, because every single one of them actually seems to be a playmaker on their own.
And even so, someone like Loktar, who hasn't been with the team for a while because he's just standing in for Zuyu, I felt like his Greymane was good. I felt like his Cassia was good. And not just as an individual level, but was gelling with the team very well, Jay Howe.
He did gel, and I know we've heaped a lot of praise on the CE, justifiably so, but we were watching that game, and when we're watching that, there are some questionable moments from Fury on that front line, very aggressive plays that kind of put his team in tough spots. I feel that's a major focal point they need to regroup on, because they're now going to be playing against Deadly Kittens. They need to go back and look at some of the approach, maybe even their drafts, maybe switch it up, put him on a different style hero, because there are moments in that game that probably shouldn't have happened that did happen, and I think it cost them dearly in team fights.
It's dangerous, right? If you power slide in, you want to make sure that it leads to a kill immediately. Otherwise, there's too many members of the enemy team that are there to counterattack on the ETC, who now no longer has his escape. It may work out really well if you see an opportunity and you do get that kill, but if you fail, and CE did so well to counteract that, then it's a big risk.
Well, let's hear from the winners themselves as we head over to Kevin, who's down at the stage.
Thank you so much, Kylaris. I'm here with Paradise, assassin player from the team of CE. Congratulations on your victory. Very well won there. 2-0 win over Tempo Storm. When we spoke to your team during the media days before this tournament, you said that a victory over Tempo Storm was probably a 50-50 chance, and that if you could secure that victory, it would bode well for your ability to get out of this group. How did you feel about that match? Did it play out the way you expected, and how are you feeling right now with the victory?
首先非常恭喜啊，就是我们那个一开场就是2-0，就是击败第一支战队，然后就是你们在媒体也说到其实跟 Tempo Storm 打这个比赛其实是55%。50%的那个5-5开的胜率嘛，然后就是想问一下，这下次能第一场就2-0轻松获胜，对你们那个晋级小组赛打到后面的那个8强，是会有什么样的一个寓意呢？
其实这场比赛就是打之前，我们是觉得就是可能在跟对手的差距应该就是在5-5之间，但是因为我们这2天，因为我们知道我们这小组最大的对手可能是北美战队，所以我们会去准备这样一场比赛，然后也算是就是准备有所回报吧，对，就是这样。
I think going into this group, we know that our biggest opponents could be North America team, so we did a lot of practice to really target their team. So I know that going to the match is going to be 50-50, but we're just really happy that we're able to take this first match.
Absolutely. Now, we also know your team is playing a man down from your normal roster. Zuyu had some unfortunate visa issues and couldn't be here, and Loktar is a substitute for your team. Do you have any expectations that will have a heavy impact on your ability to go far in this tournament? And how is your team adjusting to that last-minute change in roster?
这边也说到，因为是由于签证原因嘛，其中有一位选手没法来到美国参加比赛，所以说 Loktar 也是替补上场。就是这边想问一下，就是说你们也是一个4+1这么一个阵容来到这个比赛，会对你的之后的那个影响，包括是后面的比赛有什么那个影响吗？
其实我们就是换的这名替补 Loktar 这名选手，其实他在就是个人技术方面，实际上与我们之前的就是正式选手相差不太多，所以就再加上我们平时也很熟，所以这次比赛相对来说，就对我们来说影响并不大，就是换了人之后。
I think in terms of skill level, I think the substitution player Loktar is really on par with the player that are unable to come to for this tournament. So we don't think he's going to be a major factor for us. So we actually think that he is really good, a good component for this team.
Fantastic. Well, congratulations once again on your victory, and good luck as you advance in this group stage to play MVP Black. We'll see you in the next match. All right, folks, Lava Wave, undefeated in the HGC. Please stick around. Just a short break. We'll be right back.